Hi, welcome to Steph's World, Spiritual Foundations 42, Part 1. Alright, I've had a lot of trouble today getting this done. I don't want to think that God's trying to tell me something here. I believe that. Let me get to my computer. Okay. Now, I tried to shut off all the interrupting background crap that makes this thing run really bad. And we'll see how that goes. This is going to be part 1 because it's going to be long. I can't help it. There's a lot to talk about. You know how I've been talking about how we parents pass down a lot of our stuff that we might not even know we have. And first of all, let me make something clear. I'm not trying to put a guilt trip on anybody. So don't worry about that. Okay? Come on now. That ain't happening. All I'm trying to do is to tell you about it. To tell you that this could be happening. And if you're not doing it, cool, man. Really cool. But I know a lot of people that it is happening to. Even now. Even though we've come a long ways in 59 years. We really have. There's other things that we're doing that are not so good. And are we really thinking about our children and what they're learning, what they're watching, what they watch on TV, what they watch their mommy and daddy do? These things are so important. Unbelievably important. And you know, even though I pretty much knew that, you know, when I was raising mine, life got in the way. What else can I say? And sometimes my priorities weren't the way that maybe they should have been. Now, I'm talking about me. I'm not talking about you. Let's clear that up right now, okay? There's no finger pointing. There's no blaming. There's no complaining. I don't believe in that crap. And I can read you stuff in the Bible, stuff in the Quran, stuff in all the holy books that say, stop it. Stop doing this right now. Okay. I'm going to tell you about things that happened to me, and it's going to take 2 parts. But you need to hear it. I've already told you I've had a broken lower back and a broken neck. Did you ever wonder why? Did it ever cross your mind? How could somebody break those things? Oh, and not have one of those air tubes? That's a miracle. That was a miracle. And some of it had to do, the broken neck had to do with my age. Now, I'm going to tell you about my neck. It's real numb. It's a horrible sensation. I can barely stand touching it. It's horrible, horrible, horrible. I hate it. And sitting up like this for a great length of time, my throat tightens up so bad that sometimes I can't even talk. I definitely have trouble swallowing. If I have to take a pill, if they're bigger than about this, I have to crunch them up. It's a nightmare. It really is. If I go to the hospital, believe me, the nurses don't like it. And they sure let you know. Okay, so anyway, let's start as early as I can to let you know where some of my medical problems came from. First of all, some of them were hereditary. My mother had some of these problems. The neurological stuff came from my dad's side of the family. So I got hit from both sides, okay? Now I have other family members, siblings, that have absolutely nothing wrong with them. But then there's 3 of us that do. So out of 6 kids, half of us have really bad problems, okay? Okay, so we're going to start there. When I was a little girl, I must have been about 8. This is one I remember. That's when I remember it, very distinctly. I'd wake up in the middle of the night just screaming. And my mother would come running in and sit down on the bed and say, and I'd be crying, and she'd say, Steph, what's wrong? Well, they had their own name for me, but we won't say that. And I'd say, Mommy, my legs hurt so bad, I can't take it. I hurt real bad. And my mother, my dear mother, she would say, those are growing pains. I had them when I was your age too. I believed her. All the way up to being a grown-up, I believed her. Well, after a while, I didn't seem to have them anymore. Okay, so then, let's talk about my mom and dad real quick. Now, I have a picture of my mother just yesterday. This is not the woman I grew up with. She's gotten so old and so decrepit. I cried when I saw her picture. That was not the mother that I left when I moved down here. My mother was so dark-skinned, we weren't sure if we were black or white. We honestly didn't know. And I saw that picture of her and I thought, my God, I've never seen my mother so white. Never. Now the rest of her Native American stuff showed through. The big nose and strange nose. We used to make fun of it when I was a kid, and I know that's not nice, but we were kids. And then we'd say, you're going to get her nose, not, well, I'm not. Well, truth of the matter was, I didn't get her nose. I got my dad's nose, which was hardly anything. But anyway, None of us were dark like my mom. No, not one of us. And I'm going to talk about this other part in the second piece, okay? We're going to talk about my oldest son in the second part, because that is really important. Now, one of the things that my mother did, and I don't think she honestly meant it, but you got to remember when you're growing up and you're a kid and you're scared to death of your dad. He was an Irishman, and he had a temper. I'm going to tell you right now, I had nothing but fear from him. I was scared to death of that man. But anyway, one of the things my mother would say is, when you're 18, you're out. And that was like, oh my God, you know. Well, unless I was in college, I was out of the house. Not that I even wanted to be there, to be honest with you. Now, I didn't have very many friends when I was in high school. And part of that was because I went to Catholic schools up until through my 8th grade, okay? And then, freedom! I got to go to a public school. Hallelujah! I was not a Catholic anymore. So the day that my dad came up to my room, knocked on the door, and I said, come in, I was 15 years old. He goes, okay, we're atheists now. Didn't bother me a bit. Of course, I wasn't an atheist, but I didn't care. The fact was, I didn't have to go to that ridiculous church anymore. And that was the way I thought of it, okay? I'm not putting it down. I'm telling you the way I thought of it as a 15-year-old. Now today, I honor and respect all religions. I honor and respect all of them. I won't be in any of them, but I honor and respect them. I am of God, period. I don't believe in being part of a religion. I have a relationship with God, and that's all I need to say about it. Okay, now, my best friend in high school had a lot of issues. She was so intelligent, it was unbelievable. She could write poetry that would just knock your socks off. Well, just to make a long story short, when 2 days before my 16th birthday, no, wait a minute, it was 2 weeks after my 16th birthday, she walked in front of the Chicago Northwestern commuter train. Died instantly. It did a number on me. Don't think it didn't. I never had any close friends after that again. Never. Not my whole life. Now, I don't know if I ever will, to be honest with you. I don't mind having a close friend, but I just don't seem to have them. I've had good friends. I've had people that I honor and respect with all my heart. who have helped me tremendously in many ways, but I've never, ever, ever had the closeness that I had with her, ever. Not since she passed. Okay, now, that's kind of a shocker when you're 16 years old. That's kind of one of the reasons. I was already a bit of a hellraiser, but when that happened, I became a super hellraiser. Totally out of control. They had to put me away for a while. Okay? Now, I feel sorry for my dad. I really do. It must have cost him a fortune. If you've ever watched that movie, Girl Interrupted, it was something like that, okay? And it happened in the 60s, just like that, okay? Only the difference was that the males were with us. My very first real boyfriend came from that place that they put me in. And when he was going to be released, I was in there about 8 months, my whole junior year. And when he was going to be released, I knew how to do it, so I made sure I got released too. And we continued our relationship till he broke up with me at the end of the summer because he was going to college and I still had a year of high school to go, so he was right to do that. But at the time, I gave this man, or young man, my heart, my soul, everything. I had trusted him, and I felt like he was the love of my life, and that was probably the first love of a teenage girl, okay, was this young man. So when he broke up with me, it about tore me apart, really. Okay, so I don't remember much about my senior year, honestly. There were a lot of drugs. I did have men that really wanted to be my boyfriend, but it never happened. I said no, thank you. I got through it. I just don't remember much of it. Blocked it out. That's what they call it. There's a name for it. Repressed memory. Or regression memory. Something like that. Anyway, since I've gotten a lot of help through the years, a lot of memory has come back. And that's good. That's really good. I can handle those memories now. But there was a time when I couldn't. When I played the blame game, the complain game, the everything game, the anger, you name it, I had it. All the negative stuff you could think of, that's who I was. I was mad at everybody. I was mad at the world. I thought the world had done me wrong, let me tell you. Well, my mother did this thing before I got out of the house about, you're out when you're 18. And I honestly believed it. Now, my dad wanted me to go to college because supposedly I had this real high IQ. And he wanted me to be a doctor or a lawyer. I mean, he was adamant about me. And I got scholarships like that. I didn't seem to have any trouble getting those. I did real good on the SATs. Anyway, I, deep in my heart, did not want to go to college yet. I hated high school. It bored the crap out of me. I never did any homework, and I don't even know how I got through the school, through the education at all. I felt like it was a waste of time, if you want to know the truth. So I figured college would not be any different. So what was the point? So instead of doing that, after I graduated, I got a really good job at Illinois Bell Telephone. That was before AT&T built this giant super thing called AT&T. They were already AT&T, but boy, when they took over the phone system, oh my God. Well, that was when the regulatory systems had to jump in and go, no, 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 you're not going to play that game. Well, they still played it. You just didn't realize it. But fortunately, more competition came into the game. But let's not talk about that right now. I'm going to tell you about something that's going to freak you out. Be ready. Instead of just moving out on my own, I didn't think I could afford to do it. Well, I could have. That's something I found out and realized much later. I could have. Absolutely. We found a cute little apartment above a bunch of stores. They had a whole bunch of apartments above this group of stores. And it was right downtown of our suburb, and it was a perfect spot. Oh, and where I worked was in walking distance. It was great. Okay, now I wanted to live with them. I didn't want to get married. Okay? I never wanted to get married, truthfully. Not ever. Not to any man. And I've been married 4 times, but I never wanted to get married. Not ever. Only one time, and for one reason, and I'll get to that. Okay, so I'm going to call him H to protect him. When we were dating during the summer, before we actually did get married, which was about a few weeks after I turned 18, my birthday was late in the year. He would do horrible things like get angry at me at the end of the date. It'd be in the middle of the night. And he would push my face against the great big oak tree that we had in our front yard. Scrape it up real good and just punch it into the tree a few times. And that should have been my uh-oh moment, but it wasn't. It wasn't. Because I was about as insecure as they come. Okay? I thought I needed this man. I really did. I knew what was coming, and I didn't know what else to do. Hey, he was good looking. I'll give him that. Okay? And he was a charmer. Oh, yeah. He even had my mother charmed. Okay, so anyway, the day of my marriage, and oh, by the way, he was a Catholic, so it had to be done in our old Catholic church. None of us were anymore, but, you know, I think a couple of my sisters stayed being Catholic, but Mom and Dad weren't. And I don't know what I was. I had not developed my relationship with God yet. It took me many years to do that. Many, many years. And many things had to happen for this to become what it is today. Okay. So, right before my dad walked me down the aisle, everybody else is there waiting for me to come down. I have relatives there. I had the most beautiful dress you could ever imagine. I was a very pretty young girl. I really was. I had a super hourglass figure, about a 17-inch waist, and that's the truth. And my mother passed on another little something to all of her girls that some of us wish she had. But anyway, Dad said to me, you know, you don't have to do this. And boy, there were times when I looked back and I thought, you should have listened to him. But I kept thinking about all my relatives that were there, that came from all different parts of the area, the country. And I kept thinking, wow, I can't do that to them. Okay, so I decided, yeah, we're going to go through with it. So I got married. 3 weeks later, I came home from work. My girlfriend met me at the apartment. We were going to go to the show. And I figured H would want to go with us. Well, H wasn't there. Oh, and H lost his job too, by the way. So we were living on my income, which, as it turned out, I made pretty good money. I could afford that apartment. There weren't any issues here. We had a very cheap car, too. He had a beautiful Mach 1 when I met him, brand new, got repossessed. Believe me, there's a lot that I should have been paying attention to. But I'd made up my mind that I would just go through with this, okay? Because I didn't want to get kicked out of the house. And here I was, able to afford the apartment without him. I didn't need him. He needed me. There's what it was. This is the important part. He needed me. I didn't need him. Not ever. It wasn't love. I did not marry him out of love. Not at all. I didn't love him at all. Not one bit. I was scared. I had fear in my heart. And it was unfounded fear. Well, I married him, and 3 weeks later, my girlfriend and I went to the show. I left him a note saying, I don't know where you're at, but so-and-so and I went to see whatever it was at the show. I think it was Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Yeah, that's how far back I go. It was playing at the movies, okay? Well, I got home about 11:30, and there he was, all looked so uncomfortable in his leather jacket, and I felt so sorry for him. I tried to get him out of the jacket so he could go to bed, to the bedroom. Well, next thing I know, the fist is coming up and it's repeatedly hitting me. Repeatedly, over and over and over again. And then the strangulation on my throat. And then trying to break my back, one hand on my neck, the other hand on my thighs, trying to break my back on the cheap table we had in the living room. At some point, I tried to run and jump out of the window. We were on the second floor. I didn't care. I did not care how high up we were. All I wanted to do was get away from him. He was going to kill me. In fact, that's all I heard was, "I'm going to kill you," in the most horrible, menacing tone any human being could ever imagine. And he beat the crap out of me. He just kept beating me and beating me, ripped my throat open, strangling me over and over again, punching me in the eyes, punching me in the face, punching me in my chest, punching me everywhere he could, slapping me, just laying into me like I was a man. And finally I figured something out. "Steph, pretend you're dead," which I felt like I almost was anyway. So I just slumped down to the ground, and he kicked me a bunch of times. And I just played possum, didn't move. I had blood pouring out of me, out of my neck. He had ripped my neck open with his hands. And something else was pouring out blood too, and I don't even remember what it was. I know it got stitched. But anyway, he thought he killed me. So he went in the bedroom and went to sleep. Well, I couldn't walk, and my head was like this, like the bobbleheads. Have you ever seen them in the car? The old bobblehead toys? Yeah, that's how my head was. Well, fortunately, the police station was a half a block away. Now, it had snowed, so I didn't have very many clothes on, and they were all ripped up. He had just literally tried to rip all my clothes off of me. I didn't care. I climbed down the steps face first with the bobblehead, and I literally crawled and dragged myself to the police station. Got to the door, couldn't open it, but they saw me, and they came running because I was bleeding everywhere. It was pouring out of me, and my head was bobbling up and down. And they immediately called an ambulance. They thought I was going to die. They really were. They really thought I wasn't going to make it. Well, I made it. By the grace of God, I made it. And he beat me so bad that he broke my neck. Now, the reason my spinal cord didn't get broken, we finally figured this out. I still had a very young body. Now, if you're a doctor, you know what I'm talking about. He broke those vertebrae. I don't know how many of them he broke, maybe all of them. At least 5 that we know of. And, but the sheathing that protected the spinal cord, he didn't manage to break through. That was a miracle. An absolute miracle. But I still couldn't control my neck. And it was out to here, swollen up. It was black from all the blood vessels that had broken in my neck. They barely found anything to put around it to hold me together. The doctors tried to talk me out of going back to them, but it didn't work because we'd only been married 3 weeks. And I just couldn't imagine leaving my husband that soon. I had taken vows. That was important to me. Well, anyway, of course, my dad kicked the crap out of him when he went over to the apartment to tell him that his wife was at the hospital. And my brothers knew some unsavory types, and my dad knew that. My dad actually was going to pay someone to have H killed. I'm just glad it didn't happen. Because I'd hate to have Dad have gone to jail for that. I really would have. It wouldn't have been worth it. I lived. Now, one of my eyes was closed shut for a month. The other eye, every blood vessel in it was broken. My face was purple. It was swollen too, pretty much out to here. When the other eye finally opened, every blood vessel in that one was broken too. Now, work first told me you can't come back to work until a doctor says that your eyes are okay. Well, that took time. By the time I could go back to work, they'd already decided that I had too many problems at home, so they let me go. And they said that I was not hireable again. Well, that's pretty bad, especially when you scored almost, according to them, the highest anyone's ever scored on their tests. I was very good at what I did. But because of that experience and because of the beatings that I went through, they would not allow me to work for them. So, next thing that happened, well, he beat me a couple more times, and I called the police on him the next time that he did it, and they took pictures. There was he ripped my clothes off, literally, just ripped them off. And I called the police, and that time I was able to. He was going to kill both of us. He'd gone outside, and he had the tube connecting from the exhaust into the car, and he had it running, so we would die pretty quick once we sat in there. And he had decided that both of us were going to die. Well, fortunately, we had gotten a phone. So while he went out to get all that ready, I took the phone and I called the police. Well, they knew who I was right away. I didn't have to hardly tell them anything. They told me, we're on our way. We'll get there as quick as humanly possible, because I told them he was going to kill both of us. And he was. At the time, I smoked cigarettes, so I asked him to delay it so the police could get there. I asked him if I could please have one last cigarette before I died, and he let me have it. So I smoked that cigarette about as slow as a human being could smoke a cigarette. And when I crunched it out, all of a sudden we heard the boom, 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 boom on the door. This is the Lombard police. We have a report of a domestic disturbance and we need to come in now. And he didn't want to let him in, but I said, please come in. And they found the hose and everything hooked up. So they unhooked everything, took care of that. Then they took pictures of me, very embarrassing for a young girl. I was only 18 years old. I had to be naked for them to get all the pictures. And then they put him in jail. But guess what? He got out the next day. Did me a lot of good, didn't it? He tried to run me down like on the sidewalk a few times. Well, then my parents sent me down to Kansas City because we had relatives down in Kansas City. Well, that didn't last long. He figured out where I was and he came down and got me. We got back up to Chicago and that was it. I was a prisoner. I could not leave his mother's house ever. Not unless he was with me. And there's lots of things I could tell you about that. But the main thing I am going to tell you about is this. Besides getting beaten almost every single day, and I'm not talking about the broken neck beating. I'm just talking about simple punch me in the face or come around from the back and twist a towel around and wrap it around my neck and try to strangle me with it. That kind of stuff. Every night he would take an axe out of the pantry and he'd say, this could be the night, meaning that he was going to cut my head off. So there for a long time, I could not sleep at night. You know, I don't know why when he went to sleep, I didn't try to get away. Maybe I was so afraid that he would wake up, and if he did, it would be 100 times worse. Probably it would. So anyway, the point is, though, here's where the miracle came in. One day he told me he wanted to go to a park that was close to his mother's house. I said, no, I really don't feel like going. Hey, he let me stay at home. He had never done that. So that was my moment in time to get away from him. He went to the park. I called my dad. I couldn't get a hold of him. I called my aunt in Oak Park. She got a hold of my dad. He called me and said, I'll be there in 20 minutes. Don't worry about your stuff. Just get your butt out in the driveway and get in the car. And basically, that is exactly what I did. Now, today I will tell you that I believe that that was intervention by God. Now, you can believe anything you want, but even my friends and especially my family, nobody was allowed to see me for several months. Nobody knew what he had put me through during that time. He was about as dependent a human being as I have ever known in my life. Now, that was years and years, that was 40 years ago, over 40 years ago. Today, I pray for him. I forgave him a long time ago. He is a sick, sick man. And today, I pray for him. So, this is part 1. And then we're going to do part 2 as quick as I can because there's a little bit more you need to know about Steph, okay? And my life. And how I came to where I am at today. I love you all. Happy Valentine's Day.